When you're going through the police hiring process, should you be upfront about your past? And I'm not telling you to lie, but the question is how much do you disclose and what should you disclose? Let's discuss. Hey, before we get started, listen, I have those two gifts in the description for you. One of them is the Getting Started workshop. It's going to walk you through each stage in the hiring process, and it's going to really help you know what it's going to look like as you go through each phase of the hiring process. Plus, there's the bonuses in there, like some practice exams that will score and let you know where you're going to score on the written. Next is the one-on-one coaching call with myself. And this is where we can sit down and discuss anything specific to your hiring process. And we can lay out a good plan and pipeline for you to proceed further and really understand what hurdles you may or may not have going through your hiring process now and in the future. But first, let's cover what you should be upfront about in your hiring process. Never lie. Right? I'm never telling you to lie ever. At any point in time, never lie. That's not the type of law enforcement that need to be out there. When you get a security clearance for, say, a uniform position, it's a public trust clearance, which means the public needs to be able to trust you. And if you're lying to get a job, you can't be trusted. Now, with that being said, you need to make sure that you're specific, but you don't elaborate. And you've heard me say this 100 times over, and I'm going to continue to say it, but be specific, don't elaborate. What do I mean by this, and how does it entail you being upfront and honest about potential issues in your background, but not so much where you are hurting your chances to become a law enforcement officer because you don't really know what is included. And you think, man, if I'm just overtly honest about everything, I'm fine. I don't have anything to worry about, and they'll hire me. They'll see that I'm full of honesty and I'm good to go. Well, that doesn't always translate that way, right? So you may go in and think, hey, I'm just going to be overtly honest. And you may think you're being honest, but actually you're being the opposite. You're not even being honest. You're fabricating stories, and stories that really don't pertain to you. Perfect example is if you're out with friends and those friends do something that you don't agree with, that's not right. And I'm trying to think, let's use an example. So let's say you go to a store with friends and your friends steal a shirt, right? Or they steal anything from the store. Maybe it's a $5 item, a $10 item, a $20 item, whatever, something very minuscule. Your friend stole it. You didn't know about any of it. And then you go back into the car with everyone and they're like, hey, look what I just snagged. If you go on your background and it says, hey, have you ever committed any crime, even if you haven't got caught for it? And you say, yeah, at one point, me and my friends stole a shirt, or and then you try to articulate it as, hey, my friend actually was the one who stole the shirt. I didn't really know about it until afterwards. But he stole it. He didn't want to return it. And that was the end of it. You did yourself no service right there because, one, you didn't steal the shirt, right? You never were the one that stole the shirt or whatever item it was. Your friend did. And while I question your associations with that individual, and hopefully after an incident like that, you're not associated with that individual if you want to become a law enforcement officer, or you help turn that individual around, which would be even better. You weren't a participant in that. So disclosing it and portraying yourself as a participant, which I see this all the time. You may think that this is foolish, but I see this all the time. Portraying yourself as a participant just because you were present for it, even though you were unaware until after the fact, does not make you a participant. Therefore, it should not be disclosed as such. If you disclose it based on the question that is asked is, have you ever been present for any illegal activity? Any person could say that. Yes, I've been in a vehicle when someone drove over the speed limit by 5 or 10 miles an hour. Anyone can mark yes to a question such as that. But when a question specifically asks, have you participated in any illegal activity in which you've never been caught? and you put, I was, with friends and they stole something at some point, or they trespassed. If you were stuck in the vehicle, or they wouldn't let you out, or you didn't know anything about it at the time, and a friend, say you take a pickup truck through a farmer's field, and your friend says, no, I have permission to be here, and then later you find out you didn't have permission to be there, and you rutted up the crop and had property damage. You in yourself were not aware of that. So to articulate it as if you were, it's just doing yourself a disservice. Now, like I said, if the question arises where you need to articulate something such as that, as you were present for criminal activity, even though you didn't partake in, obviously clearly articulate it, but clearly articulate it as I was not a participant in this type of activity, in this illegal activity. It happens all too often where I see individuals go in there and they say, hey, I'm going to be overtly honest. And in an attempt to be overtly honest, you actually fabricate stories which put yourself in a negative light that don't allow you to make it even remotely into the hiring process. And this is where being able and being taught how to properly converse and properly convey information, which is what you're going to need to know how to do as a law enforcement officer when you go in front of a grand jury or a jury, or you go to testify in front of a judge, or even a deposition. You're going to have to make sure that you clearly articulate the facts and the facts only. If you start inputting feelings into it because you fear that it's something that may make you fail a polygraph, or you fear that it's something that may come up in the background, if you have the facts, and the facts are that you were not involved in any type of situation, then don't articulate it as if you were, right? So that's first and foremost. All right. If you weren't actually engaged in it, don't articulate it as if you were. Now, the next one is, how do you bring up issues that you were involved in, that issues that are actually in your past that may be hurdles? And once again, you be specific, but you don't elaborate. Let's use something here that's not so trivial as a speeding ticket, but not so egregious that it's a disqualifying factor. So let's use something along the lines of, trespassing, right? Say you and let's just say you were out walking around and you decided to cut across a neighbor's property, and you walk past a no trespassing sign, but it was the quickest, shortest route to where you were going. Maybe you're going to store or whatever, it doesn't matter. And you cut across, and a cop sees you, and it's clearly marked no trespassing. And the cop stops you, and the owner comes out and says, hey, this individual was cutting across your property. Would you like to press charges? And let's say the individual says yes or no, it doesn't matter. But now it's a documented report. Say they get your contact information, it's documented, and you have to clearly articulate in one of your background questions, list any time you've ever been involved with a police investigation. And you say, yep, at one point when I was 17, 18 years old, I was walking to the store and I cut across someone's property, and it was posted. I didn't see the sign, and I was stopped by law enforcement. No charges were pressed, and I was advised that I couldn't do that. End of story. That is it. That you don't need to go into the detail of, well, I was running really late and I had to go get milk for my parents. And so I just wanted to cut across Miss Johnson's yard, and I was cutting across. Miss Johnson just recently put up new trespassing sign because everyone was cutting across her yard, and the cop saw me, and the cops stopped me and said, hey, you walked right past this trespassing sign. And Miss Johnson came out and said, I've been trying to stop these guys from doing this all the time. And the cop wanted all my information. So I gave it to him, and I was just trying to, I didn't mean to do anything wrong. I was just trying to go to the store for my parent. You don't need all that. You don't. I was attempting to get to a store. I cut across this property. It was marked no trespassing. I didn't see the sign. Law enforcement officer saw the sign, stopped me, Miss Johnson said, hey, I'm trying to stop people from crossing my property. I apologized. That was the end of it. You're done. Don't go any further. You almost want to keep talking, thinking that the more I'm allowed to say, the more I'm allowed to explain myself, the better it will be. The problem is you're trying to play on someone's emotion, and this person doesn't necessarily have an emotional attachment to you. This person is a background investigator who wants facts, and the facts of the matter are: is this something that happened, and is this something that will preclude you from being a law enforcement officer? You were overt. You were honest, right? You were, hey, this happened. I was contacted by law enforcement. They took down my name, said, hey, if I do it again, I'll be charged with trespassing. End of story. That is it. No more. Don't go into any more detail. Please, for the love of everything, stop right there. Because if you don't, you're just going to dig yourself into a hole that you cannot climb out of. And then that's going to affect you for that agency when they say, hey, you're not selected, or you're disqualified, or please apply again later. And then you're in the running with another department and you say, hey, I applied to XYZ department. Then they're going to contact that department and say, hey, why wasn't this person selected? Or can you send over the documents that they submitted in their background? They're going to compare the two, and it just looks bad. You don't want to do that. It's not going to benefit you. And you're not lying. You're just not portraying an image that is wrong, right? You're not overtly explaining the situation, trying to play on someone's emotions, when really, when you go to explain something, you might start throwing in little tidbits that are maybe an exaggeration, right? Maybe I did see the sign and I was just in a rush, right? These are the type of things you have to consider. Listen, those gifts are down below for you in the description, the Getting Started workshop, as well as the one-on-one coaching call with myself, walk you through any part of the hiring process, or maybe we need to address something that's specific to your hiring process. As always, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.